Hello everyone, this is Sukanya Rana and welcome to Streak Daily Initiative, your daily dose of UPSC preparation. Today we're going to talk about day 3. So the schedule for day 3 was basically dealing with parliamentary committees and forums and state legislature. So I think topics are pretty less and I think it was easier to cover all these ideas and I hope you have attempted both prelims and your mains answers. So I'll take care of the mains answers and later on we have Santosh sir who will take care of your prelims section. So what was the first question of the day? So the first question, pretty direct, pretty straightforward. Now this question is talking about difference between department related parliamentary standing committees and parliamentary forums. So it's a 10 marker and I think pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So how do you approach these simple questions and get that extra edge in your answers? So one way to start your introduction here is, you can obviously define these two concepts in your introduction, but I would not tell you to do that because we have to differentiate both the concepts, and that is where we're going to start our body with. So the definition can directly come in your body, and if you write the definition in the body and in the introduction, it's basically repeating the stuff. So what do you do here is you basically start in a simple generic introduction here where you talk about how representativeness, responsiveness and accountability are very necessary elements of parliamentary democracy. And in fact, these two particular bodies are representative of these two values in the parliamentary democracy. So that is a small short introduction where you are basically laying down what is the importance of these two particular bodies. So let's move on to your body. Now in body, I think I would always suggest you to create a table. See, whenever you have to create a difference, if you create a proper table, then it looks very neat. The number of points are properly laid down and it's properly segregated, right? So always draw a diagram whenever you have to differentiate two concepts. So here again, we're going to draw the diagram and there are going to be multiple points upon which we're going to differentiate these two particular bodies. So number one, the first point we're going to write is we're going to define them. Both of them are different. So write the definition in the first point. The membership of these two particular bodies can also be different. So add that idea, talk about their heads, talk about their functions in particular. What are the roles of these two particular bodies? If there's a constitutional provisions that is attached to these two bodies, then also talk about that. Obviously, there's no constitutional provision directly attached to the idea of forums, but your departmental bodies are indirectly derived from one of the articles. Do write that, alright? And finally, what you can do is you can add some examples of both the, especially with respect to committees, I think parliamentary committees, you have a lot of examples. So add those examples. And if you can think any other angle which you can add in the difference, do add them, right? And I think, again, this particular answer is going to majorly cover your body portion. So emphasize upon this particular angle more, right? Then finally, you have your conclusion. And in your conclusion, again, you're going to talk about how these two particular bodies together enrich the idea of democratic parliamentary democracy. So you're going to talk about the contribution of these two bodies to the development of parliamentary democracy in your conclusion, and this will kind of provide the final touch to all the idea of differences. Like in your body, you're talking about differences, but in conclusion, you give me an angle of complementary. Like these two bodies are basically complementing each other to achieve the angle of representativeness and accountability in parliamentary democracy, and both have their equal place in our democracy, right? So this was the angle that you can cover in this particular question. Let us look at the second question of the day. The second question is dealing with your state legislative councils. Now the question here is, discuss the role that is played by state legislative councils. How are they different from Rajya Sabha? And also examine their usefulness for Indian states. Now, if you look at the question directly, we've been asked 3 questions here. Number 1 question is you have to talk about the role that is played by the state legislative body, the state legislative council. Second question is how these councils are actually different from Rajya Sabha. And third portion is what is the usefulness or significance of legislative councils for Indian state. So, pretty easy. I think you should have been able to structure this particular answer on an easy note. So, let us look at the introduction, body and conclusion of this particular question. Now, one of the common mistake that a lot of students make here is that in the introduction, they just cover the idea of state legislative councils. See, there are 2 basic terms here. There is both Rajya Sabha and state legislative council. So, give me information or define both the ideas in your introduction and write down the constitutional provisions with respect to both of them, right? So, this will ensure that any kind of definition that you had to cover is already covered in introduction. So, that is your introduction for this particular question. Then comes your body. So, in your body, you're going to talk about 3 aspects. The very first aspect you're going to talk about is the first question that was asked is role of the legislative council. Now, again, divided into a lot of different sections. Talk about the role of councils from the ordinary bill. That is, you're going to talk about some legislative measures here. The ordinary bill, the money bill, with respect to reports that are submitted by a lot of different bodies, like your state human rights commission, state public service commissions. They all submit some reports. So, council does have some role with respect to them. And your ordinance. So, you can talk about various different powers with respect to the council. And, right. So, second question was again, how is it different from Rajya Sabha? So, in the last question, like I talked about, whenever there's a difference between 2 topics, always draw a table. So, again, here, what you're going to do is you're going to draw a table and you're going to differentiate the powers of councils from Rajya Sabha and jot down point by point. Like you can talk about money bill, you can talk about ordinary bill, you can talk about amendments, right? So, every power you're going to talk about and compare in a table. Then, the third question, which was directly asked, was significance of the council with respect to state legislature. So, jot down what are the significance. Again, subdivide the idea of significance from the legislative portion, from the administrative portion, and also the idea of a guiding body, like a kind of a leadership position that council plays, which can provide an expert view, which can provide guidance to your state legislature, is also one of the role that councils play. So, cover these ideas and significance, and then we're going to add some small portion which is going to talk about the limited roles or the issues with working of councils. Now, this was not directly asked in the answer, so we're going to cover it in short. Like you can draw a flow chart and cover this idea, but do cover it. Like then, this question will become completely holistic. So, add that idea of what are the limitations with respect to councils, and finally, we're going to conclude our answer with talking about how state councils can be strengthened. And particularly, second ARC report does talk about certain reforms with respect to state councils. Include them in your answer. I think that will give you an edge over other students who are writing this particular answer. So, I think that's it for for today's question, and that was the second question. And keep writing answers, keep practicing, and we'll meet tomorrow. All the best. Bye. Thank you.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update from Civils Daily.